The gunshot echoed before anyone screamed. A man crashed into the glass table, blood blooming across his white shirt as Kang Dae Sung stood unmoving, his arms still extended, the pistol steady in his grip. The private room above the nightclub in Seoul smelled of whiskey, fear, and betrayal. Music thumped faintly from below, ignorant of the execution that had just rewritten the balance of power. No anger showed on Dae Sung's face, no satisfaction either, just control. "Clean it," he said calmly, lowering the gun, "and tell the Jung brokers the deal is off." His men moved instantly, no questions, no hesitation. They had learned long ago that when Kang Dae Sung spoke softly, lives ended loudly. As he adjusted his cufflinks, his phone vibrated. Mother. He didn't answer immediately. He never did after bloodshed. It reminded him he was still human, and he hated that weakness. The vibration came again, then a third time. He exhaled and answered. "You're late," Madame Kang said, her voice sharp as cut glass. "Again. I was working, killing, which is exactly why you need a wife." Dae Sung stepped away from the body, his shoes untouched by blood. "We've had this conversation, and we'll keep having it until you listen," she snapped. "You are 34. Your father died without seeing a grandson. The Jung family is watching. They smell decay." "They smell opportunity," he said, "because you give it to them. No air, no stability, and your rules." His jaw tightened. He knew which rule she meant. No dating black women, no hiring them, no exceptions unless politically useful. A rule his father had made, a rule Dae Sung had never questioned, until now, though he would never admit that. "You will attend a blind date tomorrow night. She is educated, quiet, unconnected to the underworld. I'm not interested. She is black." The word landed like a challenge. His grip tightened around the phone. "Then why are we even—" "Because I arranged it, and because I'm done indulging your prejudices. You will go, you will be polite, and you will not embarrass this family." Dae Sung laughed once, humorless. "You're testing me." "I'm saving you," she said coldly, "and if you don't show up, I will announce your engagement to someone far worse." The line went dead. Dae Sung stared at the phone long after the call ended. Around him, the body was gone, the glass swept away, the room restored to luxury, as if nothing violent had happened. That was how his world worked. Erase the mess, keep the power. He didn't sleep that night. The next evening, he arrived early. That alone unsettled him. The restaurant overlooked the Han River, quiet, expensive, the kind of place where money whispered instead of shouted. Dae Sung always arrived late to remind people they waited for him. Tonight, he sat 10 minutes early, his posture rigid, his expression closed. He told himself he would leave after 10 minutes. Then she walked in. Io Williams didn't scan the room nervously. She didn't smile too wide or shrink herself. She walked with calm purpose, natural curls pulled back simply, wearing a navy dress that spoke of confidence rather than wealth. She spotted him immediately. "You must be Kang Dae Sung," she said, extending her hand. Her Korean was fluent, unaccented. He hesitated half a second before taking her hand. Her grip was firm. "You're early," he said. "So are you." That threw him. They sat. Silence stretched, not awkward, but deliberate. "I'll be honest," Io said finally. "I didn't expect you to show up." "Why?" "Because men like you usually don't sit across from women like me unless they're trying to prove something." His eyes sharpened. "And what do you think I'm trying to prove? That you're not as closed-minded as your reputation suggests, or that you are, and you want confirmation." He leaned back. "You know who I am." "I know what people say," she corrected, "and I know what your family represents in certain neighborhoods." That surprised him more than anything else so far. She met his gaze without fear. "Relax, I work in Mukchon district. You don't own it officially, but everyone knows whose protection keeps the lights on." A beat passed. "You're brave," he said. "No, I'm tired of pretending not to see the system's hurting people." Something in her voice, controlled, restrained, hit deeper than accusation. "What do you do there?" "I'm a pediatrician. I volunteer at a free clinic, mostly undocumented families, Afro-Korean kids, migrants." He nodded slowly. "That explains the lack of expectations." She smiled faintly. "I didn't come here for money or status." "Then why come at all?" She studied him for a long moment. "Because your mother asked me personally, and because I believe people aren't only what they inherit." That sentence lingered between them like smoke. Dinner came. They ate. They talked. She told him about growing up between cultures, about losing her cousin to sickle cell complications because care came too late. He told him about inheriting a throne built on violence, about never choosing the crown, only surviving it. For the first time in years, Dae Sung didn't feel like he was performing power. As the check arrived, he stood. "I don't usually do this, but I'd like to see you again." She raised an eyebrow. "Why?" "Because you didn't flinch," he said honestly, "and because you didn't try to impress me." She considered him, then nodded once. "One more time. No lies." He agreed. As they parted, Dae Sung realized something unsettling. For the first time since the gunshot the night before, his hands felt clean. And somewhere far away, the empire he stood on shifted just slightly under his feet. If you're already hooked into this story, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and comment where you're watching from, because this is only the beginning of a transformation that will test power, prejudice, love, and legacy to their breaking point. The second meeting didn't happen in a restaurant. It happened at a traffic light. Dae Sung sat in the back of his sedan, window half down, when he saw her across the street. White coat folded over one arm, phone pressed to her ear, frustration etched across her face as a bus splashed through a puddle and soaked the hem of her skirt. She looked real, not curated, not waiting. "Stop the car," he said. The driver hesitated. "Sir?" "Stop." The car pulled over. Dae Sung stepped out just as Io ended her call. "You're stalking me now?" she said, surprised but not alarmed. "I was driving past. You look like you could use a ride." She glanced at the traffic, then at him. "Your idea of casual is dangerous. Get in anyway." She did. The silence inside the car was different this time, less guarded, more curious. "Clinic ran late?" he asked. "Emergencies don't care about schedules," she said. "You ever had someone bleed out in your arms?" He didn't answer immediately. The city blurred past the window. "Yes," he said finally. She nodded, accepting the truth without asking for details. They stopped at a small cafe near Mukchon district, not owned by him, not protected by his men. That mattered to her. Inside, the owner smiled at Io. "Doctor, you're late." "I know, I'm sorry." Dae Sung noticed the warmth, the respect, no fear. "You belong here," he said once they sat. "I chose here," she corrected. "Belonging implies permission." He studied her. "You don't ask for much permission, do you?" "No," she said lightly. "Neither do you." Conversation flowed easier. She challenged him. He didn't shut down. She asked about his childhood. He surprised himself by answering. "My father believed love was leverage, so he never gave it freely." "And your mother?" "She believes survival is love." Io sipped her coffee. "That explains a lot." "About me?" "About why you confuse control with care." The words hit hard, but not cruel. "You talk like you're not afraid of consequences," he said. "I am. I just refuse to let fear decide who I become." Outside, two of Dae Sung's men watched from across the street. One leaned into his earpiece. "She's not impressed," the man muttered. Dae Sung heard it, smiled faintly. Later that night, he visited the clinic, unannounced. The building was old, paint chipped, but clean, alive. Io froze when she saw him. "This isn't a zoo." "I know," he said. "I wanted to see it without filters." A child tugged at her sleeve. "Dr. Io?" "I'm coming," she said softly, then turned to him. "You can stay, but you don't get special treatment." "I wouldn't expect it." He watched her work, watched the way children calmed at her touch, watched parents bow in gratitude. This was power too. Later, as they walked out, she stopped near the alley. "This neighborhood," she said, "people are scared, not of crime, of you." He stiffened. "I keep them safe. You keep them compliant. There's a difference." A beat passed. "No one's ever said that to my face," he said. "Then they've been lying," she said gently. That night, Dae Sung couldn't sleep again. But this time, it wasn't guilt keeping him awake. It was possibility. Madame Kang noticed immediately. "You're distracted," she said over breakfast. "Careless." "I'm thinking," he replied. "That's what worries me." She studied him. "You've grown attached. She's not a weakness." "Everyone is," Madame Kang said, "until proven otherwise." Days turned into weeks. Coffee became dinners. Dinners became walks. Walks became confessions. Io told him about racism she faced quietly, about being fetishized or dismissed, about choosing Korea anyway. Dae Sung told him about blood deaths, about watching boys his age die because of mistakes he inherited. One night she stopped him mid-sentence. "If we keep doing this," she said, "I need one thing." "Name it." "No half-truths. I won't love a shadow." He nodded, slowly. "Then you should walk away." "Why?" "Because the truth is violent." "So was my past," she said. "I'm still standing." That was when he knew. The empire he was born into would not survive her light unchanged. And somewhere in the dark corners of the city, enemies were already noticing the shift.
The first threat came quietly. Not a gun, not a message, just absence. One of Dae Sung's mid-level collectors failed to report in, then another. By the third day, silence had spread through 2 streets in Mokchon district like a held breath. Dae Sung knew what that meant. Someone was testing him. He stood on the balcony of his penthouse, phone pressed to his ear, eyes fixed on the city lights below. "Find out who's cutting my lines," he said, "and don't touch Mokchon until I say so." "Yes, sir." When he hung up, Ao was watching him from inside, her expression unreadable. "You're pulling back," she said, "temporarily." "That's not what scares me," she replied. "What scares me is that you look relieved." He didn't deny it. They were sitting on the floor, backs against the couch, the television muted. It was the most normal evening he'd had in years. No guards inside, no meetings, just her presence grounding the air around him. "You know this doesn't end quietly," she said. "I know. And if it turns violent?" He turned to her. "Then I choose differently." She studied his face, searching for the lie she'd learned powerful men always hid behind. She didn't find it. That night, Madame Kang summoned him. The estate was quiet, lanterns glowing softly along the stone path. His mother sat at the low table, tea untouched. "The Jung family has moved," she said, without greeting. "They've been courting your lieutenants." "Let them," Dae Sung replied. "Anyone who leaves was never loyal." "Loyalty is purchased," she snapped. "You taught them that." "I learned it," he corrected. Her eyes narrowed. "This woman is changing you." She's reminding me who I was before the blood. Madame Kang stood slowly. Your father believed mercy invited chaos. And look where his certainty led, Dae Sung said quietly. Silence fell between them, heavy with decades of survival. If you bring her into this family, Madame Kang said, you must protect her publicly, or she will be used against you. I know. And if she leaves, Dae Sung hesitated for the first time. I don't cage people, he said. That's the difference. Days later, the Jung family made their move. Ayo's clinic was vandalized. No one hurt, but the message was clear. Broken windows, slurs sprayed across the wall, a warning. Ayo stood outside the next morning, arms crossed, fury contained but visible. This is because of you, she said, not accusing, stating fact. Yes, and your solution? He looked at the damage. I'll pay for repairs. That's not a solution, she said sharply. That's a bandage. What do you want me to do? He asked. She met his eyes. Met your eyes, she said. Stop pretending your world and mine are separate. That night, Dae Sung called an emergency meeting. The room was filled with men who'd bled for his family, feared him, obeyed him. This ends, he said, voice calm but carrying weight. Murmurs rippled. One man laughed. You're going soft. Dae Sung's gaze locked onto him. You're free to leave. The laughter died. Anyone who touches that clinic answers to me, not the old way, the final way. No one challenged him. But word traveled fast. By the end of the week, his accounts were frozen. Shell companies collapsed. Allies vanished. The cost had begun. Ayo saw the toll immediately. You're bleeding resources, she said quietly as they walked along the river. For me, for us, he corrected. She stopped. I didn't ask you to burn your life down. No, he said. I asked you to be honest. This is what honesty costs. Her voice softened. And if it costs you everything? He took her hands. Then I'll finally know what was worth keeping. She didn't pull away, but danger was closing in. A black sedan followed them one night, then disappeared. A voicemail with no words, just breathing. Ayo confronted him. Someone's watching us. Yes, and you didn't tell me. I didn't want you afraid. She shook her head. Fear doesn't disappear because you ignore it. It just chooses when to show up. The next morning, a body was found near the docks. One of Dae Sung's former collectors, throat cut, message delivered. The Jung family wasn't negotiating. Dae Sung stared at the report, jaw tight. This was the price of half measures. He went to Ayo that night, rain soaking his coat, urgency in every step. I need you to listen and not interrupt. She sat. I'm dismantling everything, piece by piece. I'm selling assets, closing fronts, cutting ties. Her eyes widened. That will start a war. It already has. And after? After, I become a man without an empire. Silence stretched. Finally, she asked, and who will you be then? He exhaled. Someone worthy of choosing you. She stood, walked to him, rested her forehead against his chest. I don't need you to be worthy, she whispered. I need you alive. Outside, thunder rolled. Inside, two worlds collided, irreversibly, and neither of them could pretend anymore that love was the most dangerous choice of all.
The first asset fell 3 days later. A nightclub in the Eastern District, one of the cleanest fronts, sold quietly to a logistics company with no underworld ties. No violence, no retaliation, just gone. Then a warehouse. Then a chain of Shell-owned apartments. Every sale sent shockwaves through the city. Men who had built their power on Dae Sung's shadow felt it thinning. Enemies who had waited years felt opportunity rising. Madame Kang watched it all without interference, until she finally called him in. "You're dismantling faster than I expected," she said, seated across from him in the estate's inner room. "That makes you reckless." "It makes me decisive," Dae Sung replied. "And if they come for you, they already are." She studied him for a long time. "You love her." He didn't hesitate. "Yes." Madame Kang exhaled slowly, like someone accepting a difficult diagnosis. "Then bring her here." Ayo stood at the gates of the Kang estate the next evening, shoulders squared, expression composed, but Dae Sung felt the tension in her hand when he squeezed it. "This isn't a trap," he said softly. She gave him a look. "Your family doesn't do traps, they do warnings." Inside, Madame Kang waited alone. No guards, no spectacle. Ayo bowed respectfully. "Thank you for seeing me." Madame Kang gestured for her to sit. "You are braver than most." "I don't think bravery is the right word. I think honesty is." A flicker of interest crossed the older woman's face. "You know my son is losing everything for you." "He's choosing differently," Ayo corrected. "I didn't force him." Madame Kang's gaze sharpened. "And if he ends up dead?" Ayo didn't flinch. "Then the fault is with the world that taught him violence was the only language worth respecting." Silence fell. Then Madame Kang laughed once, quietly. "You are dangerous," she said. "Not because of your skin, because you cannot be intimidated." She turned to Dae Sung. "Protect her properly, or don't protect her at all." That was approval, in her language. The retaliation came that same night. A convoy was hit. No casualties, but the message was unmistakable. The Jung family had crossed the line from intimidation to open war. Dae Sung stood in the aftermath, rain washing over twisted metal, his phone lighting up with reports. "Enough," he said. But he didn't reach for guns. He reached for accountants, lawyers, regulators. He exposed everything. By morning, investigations were underway, not just into his family, but into the Jung network as well. Ayo watched him pace the apartment, exhaustion etched into his face. "You're burning bridges on both sides," she said. "I'm building something else," he replied. "What if it collapses?" He stopped pacing, looked at her. "Then we rebuild." She searched his eyes. "You're serious about marriage?" "Yes." "And children?" "If you want." She swallowed. "You understand what that means for a child like mine, ours. They'll belong to two worlds and owe nothing to either." That night, he proposed. No ring, no kneeling, just truth. "Marry me, not as salvation, as partnership." She took a breath. "I will, but not until the worst is behind us." He nodded. "Fair." The worst arrived sooner than expected. Two former tenants, men who'd refused to switch allegiance, were found dead. Not by Dae Sung's orders, but blamed on him anyway. The city whispered. Ayo read the headlines in silence. "This is what follows you," she said finally. "Yes. And if it follows us forever?" He took her hands. "Then I spend forever making sure it never reaches you." She believed him. The wedding happened quietly months later. No press, no underworld guests, just a handful of friends. Madame Kang, a promise spoken plainly. When Dae Sung slid the ring onto Ayo's finger, he felt lighter than he ever had holding a gun. They moved into a small apartment, one car, no guards. Peace felt unfamiliar, almost dangerous. 5 years passed. The consulting firm grew slowly, honestly. Dae Sung worked long hours advising small businesses on risk, logistics, security, without fear. Ayo continued her clinic work. Their daughter, Nari, laughed easily. Until the message arrived. One sentence. "We remember." Dae Sung read it twice. Then a third time. The past had come back.
The phone vibrated again before Dae Sung could put it down. Unknown number. Same message. "We remember." His chest tightened, not with fear, but with recognition. This wasn't a threat written by amateurs. It wasn't emotional. It was precise.
personal. He deleted the message, then powered the phone off. Across the room, Ayo was helping Nadi with a puzzle on the living room floor, her voice soft, patient. The child laughed, proud of herself for fitting the last piece. That sound grounded him and terrified him. That night, he didn't sleep. At dawn, he was already dressed when Ayo noticed. "You're up early," she said. "We need to talk." She knew that tone. Nadi was taken to school early. The moment the door closed, Ayo turned to him. "Say it." "The past reached out," Dae Sung said. "Not to me, to us." Her face hardened, but her voice stayed steady. "How?" "Messages. Quiet ones." "Names?" "Not yet." She inhaled slowly. "Then we act before they do." He nodded. "I've already called my mother." They moved that afternoon. Not far, just enough. Madame Kong's countryside home sat behind layers of old security, walls built before cameras, guards loyal before contracts. Ayo hated the symbolism, but she understood the necessity. Nadi didn't. "Why can't I go to school?" she asked, confused. "Just for a little while," Ayo said, smiling. "Think of it like a vacation." But children feel fear, even if it's dressed as reassurance. The next message came 2 days later. A photo. Nadi's kindergarten gate. Taken that morning. Ayo stared at the screen, her hands shaking for the first time since Dae Sung had ever known her. "That means someone followed her," she said. "Someone close." Dae Sung's jaw tightened. Or someone patient. That night, the phone rang. He answered. "Did you enjoy the picture?" a man asked calmly. Dae Sung closed his eyes. "I wondered how long it would take. You always did underestimate how much pain you caused." "Min Jae," Dae Sung said. A soft chuckle. "You remember. How did you get this number?" "I've had it for years. Prison gives you time to plan." Ayo watched Dae Sung's face change, not into fear, but into something colder, older. "If you want me," Dae Sung said, "say it. I want you to feel what I felt, every day, every night, wondering if the people you love will still be alive tomorrow." "If you touch my child," Dae Sung said quietly, "there will be no world left for you to run to." Min Jae laughed. "You're not the man you used to be." "No," Dae Sung agreed. "I'm worse for you." The line went dead. Ayo didn't ask what was said. She already knew. "This ends, one way or another." "Yes, but not with violence," she added. "If you do this the old way, you lose everything you've built." He met her eyes. "Then help me do it the new way." He went to Choi Hyun-tae the next morning. The man ran a legitimate import business now, his office overlooking the docks, paperwork stacked neatly where weapons once were. "You should have stayed invisible," Hyun-tae said after hearing everything. "I tried," Dae Sung replied. "It wasn't enough." Hyun-tae leaned back. "Min Jae has nothing left but revenge. That makes him dangerous." "And predictable," Dae Sung said. They traced him to a cheap hotel near the harbor. No guards, no backup, just anger keeping him alive. Dae Sung went alone. The room smelled of stale smoke and bitterness. Min Jae sat on the bed, older, thinner, eyes burning. "You look smaller," Min Jae said. "So do you," Dae Sung replied. They stood facing each other, two ghosts from the same past. "I gave you a choice once," Min Jae said. "You chose prison for me." "I chose my family," Dae Sung said, "just like I am now." He placed a folder on the table. "Money, documents, a new identity, a way out," Dae Sung said. "Leave this country. Start again." Min Jae stared at the folder. "And if I refuse?" Dae Sung said. Then you disappear, quietly. Minutes passed. Finally, Min Jae laughed, broken, exhausted. You always did know how to survive. He took the folder. This doesn't make us even, he said. No, Dae Sung replied. It ends us. Min Jae left that night. The threats stopped. Weeks passed, then months. Nadi returned to school. Laughter returned to the apartment. One afternoon, Dae Sung sat in the audience at a kindergarten play, clapping too loudly, eyes wet. Io squeezed his hand. You did it, she whispered. He shook his head. We did. That night, on the balcony, city lights glowing softly below, Dae Sung spoke quietly. Sometimes, he admitted, I miss the power. Io leaned against him. And do you miss what it cost? He looked inside, where their daughter slept peacefully. No. The past was quiet now. Not erased, but no longer in control.
Peace didn't arrive all at once. It came in fragments, in ordinary mornings where Dae Sung woke before his alarm, not from fear, but habit. In evenings where Io came home tired, shoes kicked off by the door, frustration about funding or paperwork spilling out in rapid sentences while he listened, really listened, without trying to fix or control the problem. It came in the way Nari started sleeping through the night again. But peace, Dae Sung learned, was fragile, and fragility demanded vigilance. 6 months after Min Jae vanished, Dae Sung received an invitation he hadn't expected, a government forum on small business consulting. His name was on the list, not as a criminal, not as a witness, as an expert. He stared at the email for a long time before showing Io. They're legitimizing you, she said, surprised. They're using me, he replied, experience without the history. And how does that feel? He thought about it. Like being seen without being forgiven. She smiled softly. That's still progress. The event was held downtown, public, cameras everywhere. Dae Sung hadn't stood under bright lights without body armor in years. You don't have to go, Io said as he adjusted his jacket. I do, he replied. This is part of it. Part of atonement, part of rebuilding, part of proving to himself that he could exist without fear dictating his movements. The forum went smoothly. Applause followed his remarks. A few people avoided his eyes. Others shook his hand too eagerly. Power changed shape, but it never vanished completely. When he returned home, Io was waiting with takeout and tired eyes. You were good, she said, clear, honest. Honesty is easier when you're not hiding a gun, he replied. She laughed quietly, then grew serious. You know this doesn't mean everyone's forgotten. I don't need them to forget. I need them to stop bleeding because of me. That night, after Nari fell asleep, Io asked the question she'd been carrying for months. Do you ever regret not running? Dae Sung leaned back, eyes on the ceiling. Every day. She turned to him, and I regret staying even more, he admitted. So I chose the regret I could live with. Io nodded. That's the most honest answer you've ever given me. Another year passed. Madame Kang's health began to decline, not dramatically, but unmistakably. Age had finally found her. Dae Sung visited more often now, alone sometimes, with Nari sometimes. The old woman softened in ways he hadn't expected. She looks like you, Madame Kang said one afternoon, watching Nari play in the garden. She looks like Io, Dae Sung replied. Yes, she said quietly. That's why she'll survive better than we did. Dae Sung looked at his mother. Do you regret it, the empire? Madame Kang didn't answer immediately. I regret believing fear was the only inheritance worth passing down, she said at last. That was the closest she would ever come to apology. The consulting firm stabilized. Not rich, not powerful, but clean. Io's clinic expanded. One more room, one more nurse, one more child who didn't fall through the cracks. One evening, as rain tapped softly against the windows, Io sat beside Dae Sung on the couch, her head on his shoulder. "We should talk about the future," she said. He tensed slightly. "That sounds dangerous." She smiled. "No, just honest." She shifted to face him. "Nari will grow up different. People will remind her she doesn't fully belong anywhere." "I know. And when she asks about your past," he swallowed, "I'll tell her the truth." "All of it?" "Yes." Io reached for his hand. "Then she'll learn something most children don't." "What?" "That mistakes don't have to be destiny." Dae Sung felt something tighten in his chest. Not pain, gratitude. Later that night, as he stood on the balcony again, same city, different man, his phone buzzed. A number he didn't recognize. He stared at it for a second long before answering. Silence. Then a voice, unfamiliar, young, nervous. "I was told to call you about Min-jae." Dae Sung closed his eyes. "What about him?" he asked evenly. "He's alive, in Singapore, and someone's asking questions about you." The past, it seemed, never stayed buried forever. But Dae Sung no longer felt trapped by that knowledge. "Thank you for telling me," he calmly replied. "Don't contact me again." He hung up. Inside, Io watched him carefully. "Bad news?" she asked. "Old news, just echoing." She studied his face. And it doesn't get to decide who I am anymore." She smiled. That night, Dae Sung slept deeply. For the first time, he didn't dream of blood or power. He dreamed of nothing at all. The call about Min-jae lingered in Dae Sung's mind for days, not like a threat, but like a reminder. A scar you forgot was there until the weather changed. He didn't tell Io immediately, not because he wanted to hide it, but because for the first time in his life, he wanted to make sure a problem truly mattered before letting it into his home. That alone told him how far he'd come. A week passed, then 2. Nothing happened. No messages, no shadows near Nari's school, no unfamiliar cars idling too long on their street. Life continued, and that, more than violence, unsettled him. One evening, Dae Sung sat at the small kitchen table, papers spread out, tax filings, proposals, notes from clients who trusted him not because they feared him, but because he showed up. Io moved around the kitchen, humming softly as she packed lunch containers for the next day. "You're quiet," she said without looking at him. "Just thinking." She smiled faintly. "That usually means you're carrying something." He looked up at her, the woman who had walked into his life without armor, without fear, and changed the trajectory of a bloodline that had survived on cruelty for generations. "There was a call," he said. She stopped moving, but didn't panic. "From someone connected to Min-jae. He's alive, in Singapore." Io nodded slowly, absorbing the information. And someone might be curious about me." She walked over and sat across from him. "Do you feel threatened?" He searched himself honestly. "No." "Then tell me why you're tense." He hesitated, then spoke. "Because for a long time danger was how I knew I was alive, and now I don't want that anymore." Io reached across the table and took his hand. "That's not weakness." "I know," he said. "It just feels unfamiliar." She squeezed his fingers. "Unfamiliar is where growth lives." That night, after Nari fell asleep, Dae Sung stood in her doorway longer than usual. He watched her chest rise and fall, the soft light from the hallway painting her face in gold. She had his eyes, Io's calm, and a future that did not require fear to function. That was worth everything he'd lost. Months later, Dae Sung was invited to speak again, this time at a university, not about crime, not about redemption, about systems. How power concentrates, he said to a room full of students, and how easily it convinces you that morality is negotiable when survival is at stake. A hand went up. "Do you believe people can really change?" a student asked. Dae Sung paused. "Yes," he said finally, "but only when they stop protecting the version of themselves that benefited from the harm." That answer followed him home. That night, Ayo leaned against him on the balcony, city lights stretching endlessly before them. "You sounded like a man at peace," she said. "I'm not always," he replied honestly, "but I'm no longer pretending." She smiled. "That's enough." Years passed quietly. Madame Kang died in her sleep one winter morning. No violence, no enemies, just time, finally claiming what it always does. At the funeral, men who once feared her bowed deeply. Others stayed away. The city marked her passing with indifference. Dae Sung felt no guilt, only understanding. "She did what she knew how to do," Ayo said softly as they stood together. "And so did you." Nari, holding both their hands, asked, "Why are people sad?" "Because someone important is gone," Ayo said gently. "Were they good?" Nari asked. Dae Sung knelt beside his daughter. "They were complicated." Nari thought about that, then nodded, satisfied. Life didn't become perfect. There were hard days, arguments, fear that surfaced unexpectedly, glances from strangers who remembered rumors but not context. But there was also laughter, Sunday mornings, burnt toast, homework spread across the table, small victories that didn't need witnesses. One evening, years later, Dae Sung admitted something he'd never said aloud before. "If I hadn't gone on that blind date, I don't think I'd be alive." Ayo looked at him. "You would be alive." He shook his head. "I'd be existing." She rested her head on his shoulder. "Then I'm glad you chose differently." He kissed her hair, watching the city he once ruled with no mercy now glow peacefully below them. Power had promised him everything. Love had cost him everything. And yet, love was the only thing that gave him a future. If this story moved you, if you stayed till the very end, like this video, subscribe to the channel, and comment your thoughts below. Let us know which moment hit you the hardest and where you're watching from. Because sometimes, the most dangerous decision a powerful man can make is choosing to change.